Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 928th night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the monarch of Outer Hind, after making ready his presents, dispatched them to King Ward Khan with an escort of 100 horse, who fared on till they came to his court, and saluting him, presented letter and gifts. The king read the writ, and lodged the leader of the escort in a befitting place, entreating him with honor, and accepting the presents he presented. So the news of this was bruited abroad among the folk, and the king rejoiced therein with joy exceeding. Then he sent for the boy, the son of Shimas, and captain of the 100 horse, and entreating the young Wazir with honor, gave him the letter to read, whilst he himself blamed the king's conduct to the captain, who kissed his hands and made his excuses to him, offering up prayers for the continuance of his life and the permanence of his prosperity. The king thanked him for this, and bestowed upon him honors and largesse, and gave to all his men what befitted them, and made ready presents to send by them, and bade the boy Wazir indite an answer to their king's letter. So the boy wrote a reply, wherein, after an address, beautifully exceedingly, he touched briefly on the question of reconciliation, and praised the good breeding of the envoy and of his mounted men, and showed it when duly finished to the king, who said to him, Read it, O thou dear boy, that we may know what is written therein. So the boy read the letter in the presence of the 100 horse, and the king and all present marveled at its ordinance of style and sense. Then the king sealed the letter, and delivering it to the captain of the 100 horse, dismissed him with some of his own troops to escort him as far as the frontier of his country. The captain returned confounded in mind at that which he had seen of the boy's knowledge, and thanking Allah for the speedy accomplishment of his errand, and the acceptance of peace to the king of Outer Hind. Then going into the presence, he delivered the presents, and handed to him the letter, telling him what he had seen and heard, whereat the king rejoiced with joy exceeding, and rendering lauds to his lords the Most High, and honored the captain, commending his care and zeal, and advancing him in rank. And from that hour he waned in peace and tranquillity and all happiness. As for the king, Ward Khan, he returned the paths of righteousness, abandoning his evil ways, and repenting to Allah with sincere penitence. And he gave up womanizing altogether, and applied himself wholly to the order of the affairs of his realm, and the governance of his people in the fear of Allah. Furthermore, he made the son of Shimas Wazir in his father's stead, and the chief after himself in his realm, and keeper of his secrets, and bade decorate his capital for 7 days, and likewise the other cities of his kingdom. At this the subjects rejoiced, and fear and alarm ceased from them, and they were glad in the prospect of justice and equity, and instant in prayer for their king, and for the minister from whom and them had done away this trouble. Then said the king to the Wazir, What is thy rede for the assuring of the state, and the prospering of the people, and the return of the realm to its aforetime state, as regards captains and counselors? Answered the boy, O king of high estate, in my judgment, it behoveth before all that thou begin by rending out from thy heart the root of wickedness, and leave thy debauchery and tyranny and addiction to women. For an thou return to the root of transgression, the second backsliding will be worse than the first. The king asked, And what is the root of sinfulness, that it behoveth me to root out from my heart? And was answered by the Wazir, little of years, but great of wit. O king, the root of wickedness is subjection to the desire of women, and inclining to them, and following their counsel and contrivance, for the love of them changeth the soundest wit, and corrupteth the most upright nature. And manifest proofs bear witness to my saying, wherein an thou meditate them, and follow their actions and consequences with eyes intent, thou wilt find a loyal counselor against thine own soul, and wilt stand in no need whatever of my rede. Look then, thou occupy not thy heart with the thought of womankind, and do away the trace of them from thy mind, for that Allah the Most High hath forbidden excessive use of them by the mouth of his prophet Moses. So that quoth a certain wise king to his son, O my son, when thou succeedest to the kingdom after me, frequent not women overmuch, lest thy heart be led astray, and thy judgment be corrupted. For that overmuch commerce with them leadeth to love of them, and love of them to corruption of judgment. And the proof of this is what befell our Lord Solomon, son of David, peace be upon the twain of them, whom Allah specially endowed with knowledge and wisdom and supreme dominion, nor vouchsafed he to any one of the kings his predecessors the like of that which he gave him, and women were the cause of his father's offending. The example of this are many, O king, and I do not make mention of Solomon to thee, for that thou knowest that to none was given such dominion as that with which he was invested, so that all the kings of the earth obeyed him. Know then, O king, that the love of woman is the root of all evil, and none of them hath any judgment. Wherefore it behoveth a man use them according to his need, and not incline to them with utter inclination, for that will cast him into corruption and perdition. And thou hearken to my words, all thine affairs will prosper. But an thou neglect them, thou wilt repent, whenas repentance will not profit thee. Answered the king, Verily, I have left my whilom inclination to women. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 929th night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O mighty monarch, that King Werd Khan said to his Wazir, Indeed, I have left my whilom inclination to women, and have altogether renounced my infatuation for them. But how shall I do to punish them in retaliation of their misdeeds? For the slaying of thy sire Shimas was of their malice, and not my own will. And I know not what allayed my reason that I consented with their proposal to slay them. Then he cried, Ah me, and groaned and lamented, saying, Well away, and alas for the loss of my Wazir, and his just judgment, and admirable administration, and for the loss of the Wazirs and the heads of the state, and of the goodliness of their apt counsels and sagesses. O king, quoth the boy minister, know that the fault is not with women alone, for that they are like unto a pleasing stock in trade, whereto the lust of the lookers on incline. To whoso lusteth and buyeth, they selleth, but whoso buyeth not, none forceth him to buy. So that the fault is of him who buyeth, especially if he know the harmfulness of that merchandise. Now I warn thee, as did my sire before me, but thou acceptest not to his counsel. Answered the king, O Wazir, indeed, I have fixed this fault upon myself, even as thou hast, and I have no excuse except divine foreordainment. Rejoined the king and the Wazir, O king, know that Almighty Allah hath created us, and endowed us with capability, and pointed to us free will and choice. So if we will do, we do, and if we will, we do not. The Lord commanded us not to do harm, lest sin attach to us. Wherefore it befitteth us to take compt of whatso is right to do, for that Almighty biddeth us not but good in all cases, and forbiddeth us only from evil. But what we do of our own design, be it fair or faulty. Quoth the king, Thou sayest sooth, and indeed my fault arose from my surrendering myself to my lust, albeit often and often my better self warned me from this, and thy sire Shimas also warned me often and often, but my lusts overcame my wits. Hast thou then with thee aught that may withhold me from again committing this error, and whereby my reason may be victorious over the desires of my soul? Quoth the Wazir, Yes, I can tell thee what will restrain thee from relapsing into this fault, and it is that thou doff the garment of ignorance, and don that of understanding, and disobey thy passions, and obey thy Lord, and revert to the policy of the just king thy sire, and fulfill thy duties to all the Most High, and to thy people, and apply thyself to the defense of thy faith, and the promotion of thy subjects' welfare, and rule thyself aright, and forbear the slaughter of thy people. And look to the end of things, and sever thyself from tyranny, and oppression, and arrogance, and lewdness, and practice justice, equity, and humility, and bow before the bidding of the Almighty. Apply thyself to gentle dealing with those of his creatures over whom he set thee, and be assiduous, as it besitteth thee, in fulfilling their prayers unto thee. and thou be constant herein. May thy days be serene, and may Allah of his mercy pardon thee, and make thee loved and feared of all who look on thee. So shall thy foes be brought to naught, for the Omnipotent shall rout their hosts, and thou shalt have acceptance with him, and of his creatures be dreaded, and to them endeared. Quoth the king, Indeed, thou hast quickened my vitals, and illumined my heart with thy sweet speech, and hast opened the eyes of my clear seeing after blindness, and I am resolved to do whatso thou hast set forth to me, with the help of the Almighty, leaving my former case of lust and sinfulness, and bringing forth my soul from durance vile to deliverance, and from fear to safety. So it behoveth thee to be joyful heart hereat, and contented, for that I am become to thee as a son, maugre my more of age, and thou to me as a dear father, despite thy tenderness of years. And it hath been come incumbent on me to do mine utmost endeavor in all thou commandest me. Wherefore I thank the bounty of Allah, and thy bounty, because he hath vouchsafed me by thee fair fortune and goodly guidance, and just judgment to ward off my cark and care. And the security of my lieges hath been brought before my hand, through the excellence of thy knowledge and the goodliness of thy contrivance. And thou from this hour shalt be the counsellor of my kingdom, and equal to myself in all but sitting upon the throne. And whatso thou dost shall be law to me, and none shall disobey thy word, young in years though thou be, for that thou art old in wit and knowledge. So I thank Allah, who deigned grant thee to me, that thou mayest guide me in the way of salvation, and out of the crooked paths of perdition. Quoth the Wazir, O auspicious king, know that no merit is due to me for giving thee loyal counsel, for that to succor thee by deed and word is one of the things which is incumbent on me, seeing that I am but a plant of thy bounty. And not I alone, but one before me, was overwhelmed with thy beneficence, so that we are both alike partakers in thy honors and favors, and how shall we not acknowledge this? Moreover, thou, O king, art our shepherd and ruler, and he who wardeth off from us our foes, and to whom are committed our protection, and our guardian, constant in endeavor for our safety. Indeed, though we lavished our lives in thy service, yet should we not fulfill that which is incumbent on us of gratitude to thee? But we supplicate Allah Almighty, who hath set thee over us, and made thee our ruler, and beseech him vouchsafe thee long life and success in all thine enterprises, and not to make trial of thee with affliction in thy time, but bring thee to thy desire, and make thee to be reverenced till the day of thy death, and lengthened arms and generosity, so that thou mayest have command over every wise man, and subdue every wicked man, and all the wise and brave be found with thee in thy realm, and all the ignorant and cowardly be plucked out from thy reign. And we pray him to withhold from thy people scarcity and calamity, and so among them the seed of love and friendship, and cause them to enjoy the world in its prosperity, and of the next felicity of his grace and bounty and hidden mercies. Amen. For he is over all things omnipotent, and there is naught difficult unto him, and to him all things tend. When the king heard the Wazir's prayer, he was mightily rejoiced, and inclined to him with his whole heart, saying, Know, O Wazir, thou art to me in lieu of brother, and son, and father, and naught but death shall divide me from thee. All that my hand possesseth thou shalt have the disposal of, and if I have no child to succeed me, thou shalt sit on my throne in my stead, for thou art the worthiest of all the folk of my realm. And I will invest thee with my kingship in the presence of the grandees of my state, and appoint thee my heir apparent to inherit the kingdom after me. Inshallah. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 930th night, she resumed, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that King Ward Khan said to the son of Shimas, the whilom Wazir, Presently I will name thee my successor, and make thee my heir apparent, and I will call the grandees of mine empire to witness thereto. Then he summoned his secretary and bade him write to all the lords of his land, convoking them at his court, and cause proclamation to be made in his city to all the townfolk, great and small, bidding every one of the emirs and governors and chamberlains and other officers and dignitaries to his presence, as well as the olema and literati learned in the law. He held to boot a grand divan and made a banquet. Never was the like seen of it anywhere, and thereto he bade all the folk, high and low. So they assembled, and they abode in merrymaking, eating and drinking a month's space. After which the king clothed the whole of his household and the poor of his kingdom, and bestowed on the men of knowledge abundant largesse. Then he chose out of a number of the olema and wise men who were known to the son of Shimas, and caused them to go in to him, bidding him choose out of them 6 that he might make them wazir, under commandment of the boy. Accordingly he selected 6 of the oldest of them in years, and the best in wits, and fullest of lore, and the quickest of memory and judgment, and presented them to the king, who clad them in wazirial habit, saying, Ye are become my ministers under the commandment of this my Grand Wazir, the son of Shimas. Whatsoever he saith to you, or biddeth you to do, ye shall, and in no wise depart from it, albeit he is the youngest of you in years, for he is the eldest of you in intellect and intelligence. Then he seated them upon chairs adorned with gold after the usage of wazirs, and appointed to them stipends and allowances, bidding them choose out such of the notables of the kingdom and officers of the troops, present at the banquet as it were aptest for the service of the state, that he might make them captains of 10s, and captains of 100s, and captains of 1000s, and appoint to them dignitaries and stipends, and assign them provisions after the manner of grandees. This they did with entire diligence, and he bade them also hansel all who were present with large gifts, and dismissed them each to his country with honor and renown. He also charged his governors to rule the people with justice, and enjoined them to be tender to the poor as well as to the rich, and bade succor them from the treasury according to their several degrees. So the wazirs wished him permanence of glory and continuance of life, and he commanded to decorate the city 3 days in gratitude to Allah Almighty for mercies vouchsafed to him. Such was the case with the king and his wazirs, Ibn Shimas, in the ordinance of his kingdom through his emirs and governors. But as regards the favorite women, wives, concubines, and others, who by thy malice and perfidy had brought about the slaughter of the wazirs, and had well nigh ruined the realm, as soon as the court was dissolved and all the people had departed, each of his own place, after their affairs had been set in order, the king summoned his boy minister, the son of Shimas, and the other 6 wazirs, and taking them apart privily, said to them, Know, O wazirs, that I have been a wanderer from the right way, drowned in ignorance, opposed to admonition, a breaker of facts and promises, and a gainsayer of good counselors. And the cause of all this was my being fooled by these women, and their wiles whereby they beset me, and the glozing lure of their speech whereby they seduced me to sin, and my acceptance of this, that I deemed the words of them true and loyal counsel by reason of their sweetness and softness. But lo and behold, they were deadly poison. And now I am certified that they sought but to ruin and destroy me, wherefore they deserve punishment and retribution from me, for justice' sake, that I may make them a warning to whoso will be warned. And what say you, just judgments, anent doing them to die? Answered the boy wazir, O mighty king, I have already told thee that the women are not alone to blame, but that the fault is shared between them and the men who hearken to them. However, they deserve punishment and requital for 2 reasons. First, for the fulfillment of thy word, because thou art the supreme king, and secondly, by reason of their presumption against thee, and their seducing thee, and their meddling with that which concerneth them not, and whereof it befitteth them not even to speak. Wherefore they have right well deserved death. Yet let that which hath befallen them suffice them, and do thou hence reduce them to servants' estates. But it is thine to command in this, and in other than this. Then one of the wazirs seconded the counsel of Ibn Shimas, but another of them prostrated himself before the king, and said to him, Allah prolong the king's life. and thou be indeed resolved to do with them that which shall cause their deaths, do with them as I shall say to thee. Asked Ward Khan, and what is that? And the Wazir answered, 'Twere best that thou bid some of thy female slaves carry the women who played thee false to the apartment wherein befell the slaughter of thy Wazirs and wise men, and imprison them there, and bid that they be provided with a little meat and drink, enough to keep life in their bodies. Let them never be suffered to go forth of that place, and whenever one of them dies, let her abide among them as she is till they die all, even to the last one of them. This is the least of their desert, because they were the cause of this great avail, aye, and the origin of all the troubles and calamities that have befallen in our time. So shall it be verified in them the saying of the sayer, Whoso diggeth his brother a pit shall surely himself fall into it, albeit of long safety he have benefit. The king accepted the Wazir's counsel, and sent for 4 stalwart female slaves, committed the offending women to them, bidding them bear them into the place of slaughter, and imprison them there, and allow them every day a little coarse food and a little troubled water. They did with them as he bade, wherefore the women mourned in sore mourning, repenting them of that which they had done, and lamenting with grievous lamentation. Thus Allah gave them the reward of abjection in this world, and prepared for them torment in the world to come. Nor did they cease to abide in that murky and noisome place, whilst every day one or the other of them died, till they all perished, even to the last one of them. And the report of this event was bruited abroad in all the lands and countries. This is the end of the story of the king and his wazirs, and subjects, and praised be Allah, who causeth people to pass away, and quickeneth the bones that rot and decay. Him who alone is worthy to be glorified and magnified alway, and hallowed for ever and aye. And amongst the tales they tell is one of Abu Kur the dyer, and Abu Sur the barber. There dwelt once in Alexandria city 2 men, of whom one was a dyer by name Abu Kur, and the other a barber, Abu Sur, and they were neighbors in the market street, where the shops stood side by side. The dyer was a swindler and a liar, an exceeding wicked wit, as indeed his head temples were hewn out of a boulder rock, or fashioned of the threshold of a Jewish synagogue. Nor was he ashamed of any of his shameful work. He wrought amongst the folk. It was his wont, when any brought him cloth for staining, first to require of him payment under pretence of buying dyestuffs therewith. So the customer would give him the wage in advance, and went his way, and the dyer would spend all that he received on meat and drink, after which he would sell the cloth itself as soon as ever its owner turned his back, and waste its worth in eating and drinking, and what not else. But he ate naught but of the daintiest and most delicate viands, nor drank but of the best of that which doth away the wit of man. And when the owner of the cloth came to him, he would say to him, Return to me tomorrow before sunrise, and thou shalt find thy stuff dyed. So the customer would go away, saying to himself, One day and near another day, and return the next day at the appointed time, when the dyer would say to him, Come tomorrow. Yesterday I was not at work, for I had with me guests, and was occupied with doing what their wants required till they went. But tomorrow before sunrise come, and take thy cloth dyed. So he would fare forth, and return on the 3rd day, when Abu Kur would say to him, Indeed, yesterday I was excusable, for my wife was brought to bed in the night, and all day I was busy with manifold matters. But tomorrow, without fail, come and take thy cloth dyed. When the man came again at the appointed time, he would put him off with some other pretence. It mattered little what, and would swear to him. Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 931st night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that every time the owner of an article came to the dyer, he would put him off with any pretext, and would swear to him, nor would he cease to promise and swear to him as often as he came, till the customer lost patience and said, How oft wilt thou say to me, Tomorrow? Give me my stuff. I will not have it dyed. Whereupon the dyer would make answer, By Allah, O my brother, I am abashed at thee, but I must tell the truth, and may Allah harm all who harm folks and their goods. The other would exclaim, Tell me what hath happened. And Abu Kur would reply, As for thy stuff, I dyed that some on matchless wise, and hung it on the drying rope, but 'twas stolen, and I know not who stole it. If the owner of the stuff were of the kindly, he would say, Allah will compassionate me. And if he were of ill condition, he would haunt him with exposure and insult, but would not get nothing of him. Though he complained of him to the judge, he ceased not doing thus, till his report was noised abroad among the folk, and each used to warn the other against Abu Kur, who became a byword amongst them. So they all held aloof from him, and none would be entrapped by him, save those who were ignorant of his character. But for all this he failed not daily to suffer insult and exposure from all his creatures. By reason of this his trade became slack, and he used to go to the shop of his neighbor, Barber Abu Sir, and sit there facing the dairy with his eyes on the door. Whenever he spied anyone who knew not standing at the dairy door with a piece of stuff in his hand, he would leave the barber's booth and go up to him and say, "What seekest thou?" And the man would reply, "Take and dye me this thing." So the dyer would ask, "What color wilt thou have it?" For with all his knavish tricks, his hand was in all manners of tie, but he was never true to anyone, wherefore poverty had gotten the better of him. Then he would take the stuff and say, "Give me my wage in advance, and come tomorrow and take the stuff." So the stranger would advance him the money and wend his way, whereupon Abu Kur would carry the cloth to the market street and sell it, and with its price buy meat and vegetables and tobacco and fruit, and what not else he needed. But whenever he saw anyone who had given him stuff to dye standing at the door of his shop, he would not come forth to or even show himself to him. On this wise he abode years and years, till it fortuned one day that he received cloth to dye from a man of wrath, and sold it and spent the proceeds. The owner came to him every day, but found him not in his shop, for whenever he espied anyone who had claim against him, he would flee from him into the shop of Barber Sir. At last, that angry man, finding that he was not to be seen, and growing weary of such work, repaired to the Ghazi, and bringing one of his servants to the shop, nailed up the door in the presence of the number of Moslems, and sealed it, for that he saw therein naught save some broken pans and earthenware, to stand him instead of his stuff. After which the sergeant took the key, saying to the neighbors, "Tell him to bring back this man's cloth, then come to me, and take his shop key," and went his way, he and the man. Then said Abu Sir to Abu Kur, "What ill business of this? Whatso bringeth thee aught thou losest for him? What hath become of this angry man's stuff?" Answered the dyer, "O my neighbor, was stolen from me." "Prodigious!" exclaimed the barber. "Whenever any one give thee aught, a thief stealeth from thee. Art thou then the meeting place of every rogue upon town? I doubt me thou liest, so tell me the truth." Replied Abu Kur, "O my neighbor, none hath stolen aught from me." Asked Abu Sir, "What then dost thou with the people's property?" And the dyer answered, "Whenever any one giveth me aught to dye, I sell it and spend the price." Quoth Abu Sir, "Is this permitted thee of Allah?" And quoth Abu Kur, "I do this only out of poverty, because business is slack with me, and I am poor and have nothing." He went on to complain to him of the dullness of his trade and the lack of means. Abu Sir in like manner lamented the little profit of his own calling, saying, "I am a master of my craft, and have not my equal in this city, but no one cometh to me to be polled, because I am a pauper, and I loathe this art and mystery, O my brother." Abu Kur replied, "And I also loathe my own craft by reason of its slackness. But, O my brother, what call is there for our abiding in this town? Let us depart from it, I and thou, and solace ourselves in the lands of mankind, carrying on our hands our crafts, which are in demand all the world over, so we shall breathe the air and rest from the grievous trouble." And he ceased not to commend travel to this Abu Sir, till the barber became wishful to set out. So they agreed upon their route. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale for today, till it be morrow.